What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're gonna do our 1 week review with the 2022 Corvette Stingray and really tell you all about our opinions of what we think about this sports car. Really cool color, caffeine metallic. We have quite a few videos on it. Well, let's show you the interior spec. It's got the natural interior. This is a 2LT trim level with Z51. So let's go ahead and drive the car, tell you what we think, because unfortunately, we might have been a little wrong about the new Corvette. All right, so we are now in the 2022 Corvette. So let's first start with talking about what were we wrong about and where were we coming from before getting this car for the week.
So our initial impressions of this car, we didn't really get to put many miles on them. You know, the ones that we reviewed was kind of really short test drives, not enough like this week that we've had to really experience what this car was like. And I think we were wrong about kind of the power. You want to start there?
Yeah, we didn't think it was the fastest thing out there, and the fact that the engine isn't the highest revving, we were like, you know, you really can't use it all. We would rather see something high revving, higher horsepower, the fact that you could really just get all the motor out of it.
Right, because we're used to our vehicles redline closer to over 7,000.
Yeah, 7.8, which does make a difference. I know some people may say, oh, 500,000 isn't much, but it really does when you're ringing it out in the mountains and stuff like that. And also with that, when we test drive, you know, nearly brand new cars, we're not going to redline someone's brand new car. That's not good for the engine. That's just not respectful. And we're going to respect the cars we're driving. That's just how we're going to work.
So it's not as much of a understanding as this last week, especially going to the mountains.
And a lot of engines, you can still feel it out short shifting it. This car, short shifting felt like so short shifting to where it's just like, even if we rung it out, we're like, eh.
Yeah.
So that was one of our biggest complaints. We just felt like it was lacking. And that was all before the Z06 was even out. So your only option was just, it left us wanting more.
Right.
Now the Z06 is out. So if you really do want more power, it's like 700 horsepower with like 9,000 RPM redline. You have that. So our complaints are now debunked because
it's been answered with that.
Yeah, you can get another Corvette with those things solved. So with that said, turning that around to what we are finding we love about this car, it was so fun in the mountains. This was awesome.
One thing I was going to add was the no manual option. Real quick before we talk about that, just briefly.
Yeah.
While
that is a downfall.
While the RPM doesn't redline like crazy high, that means it's not a fast enough car where you couldn't have the manual option.
Yeah.
So the paddles are fun. They're very responsive, as we'll talk about here with the mountain trip. This could have used a manual. They've been making the manual in the Vette for 60 plus years.
Forever.
They have the tech to put it in here, and I think that would just make it a little bit more driver focused, or a little more engaging, I should say.
So that's kind of where we were at before we got it. So now, mountain trip and everything, the biggest thing that stood out to me is the handling. This is amazing. Yeah. Even on winter tires, this thing is so pinpointy. You can just do whatever you want with it. I mean, we were ripping through the mountains, and it just handled so well.
It was pretty much on par, like with my R8.
Very similar.
As far as low center of gravity. Not a huge vehicle. We'll get to that here soon. You know, it's a pretty small front end, so you can pinpoint it, like Brian was saying, from line to line. You can see the arches on both sides.
Yeah.
So he can see the passenger side there when we're on those tight corners.
Yeah, the fun driving, it really wraps around you, and it was awesome. We do mountain trips a lot, so we're used to the roads we were on, and this was hanging with the best of what we've done.
Putting it into sport mode, the exhaust got a little bit louder with the Z51. We have the tack there. I mean, it sounds good too.
Very good.
For being stock.
I wouldn't mind it louder, but the handling is phenomenal. So as far as the power though, what kind of stood out to us, it's still, and I know I've said this 100 times, not the fastest car out there, but in the mountains, it didn't need to be any faster. I had zero complaints with the power delivery and anything like that. It was so smooth, and you really, I mean, it was plenty fast. It was awesome.
You got to use the entire rev band, basically all of your power, which we found to be enough. You know, when you're doing mountain roads where speed limit is around 45 to 60, kind of just depending on the turns.
Yeah.
It's nice to use or have all of that power where you can use first, second, third gear and not be like, oh, I'm into second, we're already done. Like, so while the red line is a little bit lower, you actually can use all that power. And like Brian said, we didn't have to feel like we needed more of that. It rang out enough. Yeah.
We did notice the gears do feel slightly short. You are shifting a bit, and you're hitting redline a lot. Like sometimes if we downshifted a second, it's going right up to 5,000 or 6,000, which we're not quite used to. We're used to having a little bit taller gears to where you can just stay in a gear longer.
Right.
We felt like we had to shift a little bit more. Not necessarily a bad thing or anything.
Yeah, you couldn't stay in second or third for a consecutive amount of time, because by the time you upshifted or downshifted, you had to shift again.
But
which, I mean, it's fun going through the gears, but it is nice to be able to hold a gear while you're just focused on driving.
But nonetheless, we were really impressed with just the handling abilities. It's a fantastic sports car all day long.
Oh yeah.
And it was great. And the fact that the Z06 exists, personally, we would prefer the Z06. Obviously, it's more expensive, but we just like having higher revs to play with. And I'm so used to my car, which is very fast from a roll. I'm used to more horsepower, so that's what I like. But this car just, if you just want a good, solid sports car, this can kind of do it all.
And it has that fast launch.
The launch
we
control
did launch. Oh my gosh.
Very fast. It's wicked, and even on these tires, it's only slightly slower than my full bolt-on GTR, which is impressive. And that's a really fun factor with the car, because the launch is fun to do. You don't do it all the time, but the fact that this is a 0 to 60 car in around 3 seconds is pretty awesome. And if you were on better tires, better road, you're looking at the manufacturer's claim. On a roll, like I said, it's not crazy from a roll. So if I downshift, we're gonna go 45 miles an hour. So this is kind of like your highway pull. So 45 in third gear.
I mean,
70.
It's not slow.
Oh yeah, it's not a slow car.
Right. It's
but
just
compared to others, you do feel like, yeah, it's not crazy.
Yeah.
But very well balanced car. Really no complaints. That's not even a complaint saying it's not that fast. It's a great power delivery. And the fact that you have a big trunk up front and back.
It's very practical.
Yeah, we daily drove this.
Day,
we went grocery shopping, random stuff. So usable. Like such a usable car.
Even with the top off and in the back. Now, if you want even more storage space, you can opt for the convertible, so you still get the trunk space in the back. But even with this in the back, there was still a little bit of room. We still had the entire frunk to put items. So either way, it's still practical, really nice to drive, comfortable.
As far as like normal stuff, the front end lift, amazing. It's so quick and easy. One button takes maybe 2 seconds to go all the way up.
We use that every day.
So awesome to have. Fit and finish is pretty nice. The 2LT that we're in, this is all fake leather. It's just like a rubber material. It's decent.
It's not bad.
The 3LT has like real leather on it. But either way, this car does feel very special. It doesn't feel like just a basic Chevy or anything like that, or a basic anything.
Yeah.
It feels like a nice sports car, and the fact that there's so many contours, color options, it's like you always,
all the tech.
Yeah, you always do feel like you're in something pretty cool. What do we not like now that we've actually driven it? And I'm gonna get an acceleration going because
it is
fun.
That first?
Yeah,
you're good over here.
And that actually is one of our dislikes, which we'll talk about in a second.
Okay. It's quick.
It is fun. It is a very fun car.
So why don't we start off with visibility, since that was what we just did.
So I noticed it is a little bit weird to get used to. I've been in Huracans, 458s, R8s. Yeah. This is much different for a mid-engine car. It feels around town very big. It's funny because when we were in the mountains having a blast up there, it felt very small because you're not looking behind you. You're only looking forward.
Yeah.
And it was just total control. Around town, it feels a little big because you start actually seeing the dashboard, realizing it's pretty long, and then the front end's further. And then the rearward visibility, when you looked at your side mirrors, I noticed the rear end goes up at an angle, and it makes it feel like the rear is a foot above your head.
Yeah, you lose the bodywork after that curve to the spoiler.
It's interesting.
So actually, now, if you didn't have Z51 and you didn't have the spoiler, you couldn't see the back end of the car then.
You couldn't,
You wouldn't know where the back corner is. Like on my car, you can easily see that corner point.
Yeah, I feel like
I just noticed that.
Other mid-engine cars, they stay shrinked around you no matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
And when you look over your right shoulder, I mean, there's a lot going on there. You really don't have a good view out when you're just slow speed maneuvering and looking around. And it takes some getting used to. The fact that GM has this camera, though, is a lifesaver. If it didn't have this, I would say this is going to be one of the worst visibility cars because you can only see directly behind you. And I also noticed in this mirror, when a car is close to you, you can't see them in that mirror.
But when you do this,
you can see everything.
You can see everything.
So great job on putting that, but it just takes some getting used to. Not necessarily a bad thing. It's just interesting.
Yeah, if you're going to buy the car, you're going to buy the car. You just have to know that's what you have to do. I mean, and we've been able to drive around town and be able to see.
Yeah, it just feels a little interesting.
Yeah.
Our other thing is, and this is a personal thing, we're not the most tech savvy people, there is a lot going on in the interior with the technology. It's cool that you have the Wi-Fi, you know, simple navigation,
you
all
can pair
sorts
your
of
phone.
controls. The Apple CarPlay works great, but there's a lot of going on. We like the more old school stuff, so it's a little bit too techy for us, but it's pretty easy to get used to. So again, that's not, you know, don't deter you of that.
And along with the tech, we can move on to these, this control stack here, if you want to call it. So that was one thing that really deterred us, I think, when we first got into the car or first seeing the car.
Weren't a big fans of all the buttons.
Yeah, like look at all of these buttons and how many different functions there are. One thing that we came up with over the last week of owning this is it would be nice to see a breakup between all of these. And I think the best idea we came up with is the top section is basically for the driver, bottom section here is for your passenger. In the middle are kind of shared. You have the fan speed, where you like the air to go. If they made this middle section, maybe even brushed aluminum buttons to match some of the other trim, it wouldn't be what I guess we'd say would be an eyesore, because you look at it, you have to really know which button you want to go for because they're all the same color. If it was broken up a little bit, you could quickly pinpoint where you want to go and what button you want, because you would have those three segmentations or whatever you want to call it. So
when you first look at it, it's just a black strip, which is nice because it blends its way in. But then when you actually have to look at it, you have to find it, which I feel like you're taking your eyes off.
So if you're in here by yourself, you really got to know or come to a stop to do it.
You get used to knowing where they are. Like I've noticed, you know, this is my temperature up top, fan speed's right here, which you can feel them.
Yeah.
So it's easy enough for me to adjust some temperature, but it still is, it's a lot of black with just no division. There should be something.
Right.
And if GM uses this next part, they should hook us up with something. But it'd be cool if there were some really cool toggle switches right here for all of my driver controls, my 2 seat controls, my temperature, you know, all that stuff. And then have up top just a section for fan speed, the recirc, defrost, and then have nothing in the center, just keep it black.
Or a Chevy logo.
Yeah, cool, like etched Corvette logo. And then have passenger here. That way there's no confusion, it'll look less busy and just be so simple. You do have the screen that you can use, which is great to see as well.
And alongside that, it would be nice to have a passenger screen of some kind.
Like the Ferraris do, which obviously
is a lot more expensive. But because everything is so driver focused and pointed towards the driver, if I wanted to do the nav because he's focused on driving, I wouldn't say it's bad, but you know, I have to lean up farther a little bit to see it.
It's a little awkward.
So if there were some controls here, or somehow you could input something,
that'd be really
cool.
Or
have something in the middle, because there's just a button for the glove box, which is cool, but that could be hidden somewhere else.
Yeah,
you know, it doesn't have to be front and center.
The car, like we said, overall really good car. There's just some things you got to get used to because it's very different from other mid-engine cars.
Right.
It's very driver focused, and other passengers we've had in the car in the last week, they're not the biggest fans.
Blocked off.
But honestly, I wouldn't say it deters you from the car. It's just it's much different than a normal car.
Yeah.
But overall, at the end of the day, we changed our tone a little bit on the car. So unfortunately, in our previous videos, you know, last year driving, you know, some brand new ones and stuff, obviously we weren't redlining and doing that thing. It kind of took some fun out of it. And when you are short chipped in the car, it leaves you wanting more.
Yeah.
But you get to use the whole engine, which is fun. At the same time, it's also not fun sometimes because you have to redline it to really use all the power. But I was staying, you know, maybe 4,000 to 5,000 on a lot of the mountain trips.
Not too bad.
This car, 0 to 80 is its sweet spot. Above that, like I think it's almost a 200-mile-an-hour car. I feel like it would take forever to get there. But you know, just the usable power plant stuff, really well rounded.
I would recommend one. Yeah. If you're looking for a good overall, all-around sports car, you want the practicality too. If you need a little bit more space.
Yeah. Can't really go
all the
too
tech.
long.
Yeah.
So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video then on the new Corvette. If you did, give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and stay tuned for plenty more content. And hopefully you enjoyed the videos on this car. And we'll see you guys in the next video.